Coming up on Up at Noon, we've got some old video game stuff that belongs in a museum. Avengers Infinity War is on the way, but what happens after that? And indie games, how the hell do they get published? Seriously, we want to know. All that and more right now on Up at Noon Live.
Hello and welcome to Up at Noon. I'm your host, Brian Altano. With me is Max Scoville and our very special guest, Steve Lynn from the Video Game History Foundation. We're going to get to all of the wonderful treasures you brought us in just a second. First of all, Steve, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
We're going to have a very good show today. And you watching at home are going to have an amazing time watching us as well. Remember, you can watch us right here on IGN, also YouTube, Twitch, Apple TV, Roku, Facebook, Xbox One, PS4, all of those things. All wonderful options.
If there's a thing you can watch stuff on, you could probably watch us on it.
Yep.
What are you watching us on right now? Let us know on whatever it is you're watching us on.
Or use the hashtag Up at Noon on Twitter and tell us what you're watching this on, which is possibly the most boring question you can give us on Twitter.
Yeah.
We don't have a sponsor this week, but we do have this amazing set. Some say it's real. Maybe it's just the giant painting that Max did last night.
Is
no
it?
one knows for sure.
No.
Let's get right into it because I really want to talk about the Video Game History Foundation.
Yeah.
Steve, you're one of my favorite people in the world when it comes to video games because I think that what you're doing is probably more important than what almost any other journalist is doing, what anybody else is doing. So tell me about why video game history is important to preserve.
Well, if you look at how much of a part of our entertainment media it is, it's a huge part, right? And if you look at movies, everything before like the 20s or 30s, there's only a couple examples because no one ever thought to save any of that. With video games, almost everybody who worked on games is still alive.
Right.
And we do have the opportunity to preserve all of that. So that's what we're trying to do is create this digital archive and then get these physical artifacts into museum and libraries' hands so that journalists, researchers, academics can access these things and actually write about the history of our industry while we're still thinking about it.
And you get the advantage of the internet too.
Exactly.
It's not just like in the 30s they had like flammable like film canisters.
Right, you have to like put in like concrete things
and
that'll
like
explode.
tapestries that moths would eat, you know?
Right, but we're already seeing a lot of artifacts that we know that have been destroyed. You know, EPROMs that were written 30 years ago that are no longer viable. So we know that we've already lost some things. So we're trying to rush to get as much as we can in terms of like oral histories and everything else as quickly as possible, so that it's there for people in the future.
And outside of just sort of tangible preservation, which I think a lot of us have bet on the fact that there's the idea of digital that can preserve things for a long time, but you're missing so much there. You know, like I'm a kind of guy that like I love albums. I love gatefold album covers, records, and stuff like that. I read an article about disc rot the other day, which is the thing I didn't know was even like a possibility.
What is disc rot?
Disc rot is basically when the two of the layers of the disc start to separate and air gets in there, and it basically just starts to rust on the inside, and so you lose that data. Okay. And we have a couple of games where it's like, wow, this is a prototype we've never seen. You flip it over, and it's just like brown patches all over, and like
maybe back it up.
It's
terrifying.
Make a copy.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, like storing these things in a physical space and having a place where people can go in, it's really cool and it's really interesting, and it's good to sort of have a tangible notion to I can pick this up, I can look at it, I can remember it. I've seen you bring in promo items. You're going to bring some out in the set in a moment. But part of what you're doing is also telling the stories of how these video games came together, which I think is sort of a much smaller moving target there. Like in terms of actually finding the people that helped ship a game or pulling up a prototype that might have been thrown away or finding about the alternate history of games that we never got to play. I mean, we just saw something like Scalebound was canceled just a few months ago.
Right.
And a lot of the stories, a lot of the assets that go with that are going to go away. So how can people sort of assist this preservation foundation to sort of help you tell these stories?
Well, one of the things we're doing, we're setting up at gamehistory.org, which will allow people to have a central repository to reach out and contact us if they have these stories. Jason Scott from the Internet Archive famously says steal from work, and making sure some of that's preserved. But we're also going to be working with companies to see how they can preserve their own history. We've talked to some companies where they don't have the source code, but oddly enough, we do.
Really?
So how can we basically what are good preservation techniques? And it gets trickier as we get games as a service and they're live, and those are things we're going to tackle a little bit later down the road. Right now, we're focused on getting those stories that we know exist.
Now, do you guys have a sort of like internal calendar where you can see exactly where ancient NDAs finally sort of disappear and people can start opening up their mouths and talking to you?
Well, in the case of Nintendo, those never expire, right?
Right.
Well,
like, how do they do that?
Yeah.
Which is very odd because like their hardware, their patents have gone up over years, and
Right.
people have been able to make like knockoff NESs. We see a lot of like third-party HDMI-driven NES hybrid versions of
Right.
systems. But in terms of actually telling the stories about what happened there,
Well, a lot of times it's really just getting the story on tape or just recorded, whether or not we can release. So we have a lot of like ROMs that we can't release for legal reasons, but we know it's preserved. So there will be a time when that's will be accessible or can be accessed, or the company's like, it's fine. It's fine now. It's 50 years from now. It's a matter of getting those things down, whether or not you can release, and then deciding whether when that's appropriate.
So aside from like releasing the ROMs, are you allowed to just sort of examine them or let people look at them
Yeah.
if they're students or
In
something?
fact,
or?
that's really what we're trying to do is get into proper museums' hands where you can have them bring it over, just like a researcher, right? And do maybe an academic research on like the boards, right? To see if
Yeah.
there's differences there, or a dissection of what's actually pulled out of the ROM rather than sort of a random dump. Like BU is famous for doing much more. He's doing memory maps and things like that, that are much more extensive than the standard like throw this thing into an emulator.
right? Yeah, which is awesome because then you get to hold on to it forever. Which I think that like when we look at books and music. There's this sort of inherent preservation that happens to them based on the mediums that they are. I mean,
Right.
even just a paperback book can last longer than a video game from 15 years ago.
Right. Well,
Yep.
there's no compatibility issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As long as you're
exactly.
literate, you can appreciate that.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. Indeed. We have tapes and discs and things that we don't know how to run. It's like, well, we got to find this ancient hardware that no longer exists. Or is
Now, Steve, outside of
available.
games,
Yes.
one of the most important things are the consoles that play them on. And the
Yep.
interesting thing about those is that they usually become obsolete about 5-10 years later. I'm right now, like we are leading into the Nintendo Switch launch, and I'm looking at my Wii U next to my TV, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, like you gotta go.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna go into storage, and then the Switch is gonna take its spot, and then that's the way the sort of life cycle of consoles go. But you actually brought some very special consoles today.
I did. We're going to go through these pretty quickly, but we'll start off with a prototype. So
Okay.
this is a prototype of a PlayStation 3 Slim, and so you can see it actually pulls apart like this.
Whoa.
And
Wow.
And the Slim was this the very last one with the sliding thing
Yes,
on top?
yeah.
Okay.
I guess the Super Slim is what some
Okay.
people call it.
Right.
This is a hardware
yeah.
prototype, and it's designed for people to basically test the motherboard. This is not like heat or anything. Obviously, it's drilled through.
What's
Yeah.
this thing right
That's
here?
actually the power switch. Like I
wow.
said, this is very much like
Oh, yeah.
try to get it into a QA person's hands as quickly as possible. And what we can do by studying prototypes is look at, was there an evolution? Does this
Right.
differ from production versions? Did they add anything? Did they subtract anything?
Now, does this work?
It does work, yeah.
So if you took like a standard Sony
Yep.
cable and plugged it in?
You would plug it in, and you would have the QA person's PlayStation ID pop
Oh
up.
man, is it like a strange different like BIOS or anything? Or
Uh,
is it just like
it looks just like a slightly buggier version of the dashboard. Those are constantly going through revisions as well. So it's one of those like neat little artifacts. We're trying to keep it just so people can, like I said, take a look at the board and in the future do those comparisons.
Now, how did you get this?
So this was actually found at a flea market in the Bay
Wow.
Area. So
something tells me the QA person wasn't supposed to do that?
yeah, they probably weren't. But
Well,
you know,
you go
steal from work.
You go
Steal from
treasure
work.
hunting, basically.
we do.
Yeah.
And so another treasure hunt find was this.
Oh my God! This is awesome.
Yes. So when
man.
Fox released the Simpsons movie,
Yeah.
they made 100 of these as a promo item for the film, and so it's really bright yellow. It's got Homer on the front, and
Yeah, the yellow color is like, I don't know if you can pick that up on video. It's loud. It's like
gorgeous.
Bumblebee.
yeah,
And is this painted or is
It's
this
painted.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
oh, yeah, I see.
um,
There's a little bit of a ding there.
yeah, we got a little crack in the corner, but. This is the Xbox 360 specifically was one of those consoles that was used for tons of promotions. Like
Right.
every Comic-Con, it's like get the Watchmen, win this Watchmen 360, or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull 360.
Now,
Yep.
how hard was it to get your hands on this?
So there's 100 of them, and a lot of them hit eBay really fast. And that's like, you'll see that with any contest systems nowadays. They were going for like $800 to $1,000.
Oh my God.
But usually, if you want to get one of these, I usually tell people to try to get them as quickly as possible because the availability just drops. Like that gold, like Taco Bell PS4.
Yeah.
You know, that showed up a bunch of places, and now it's getting a little bit harder to find.
Well, it seems like the kind of thing that some people win the contest and they're like, I want to put this on eBay, and some people are like, I want to keep this forever.
Yes.
In my house.
Yes.
And then you got to wait until they die and their
Right.
relatives sell their things.
So there's like 2 waves of selling.
Yeah, so I was going to say, is there like a sort of arc where it's like very expensive and then it drops, or?
It depends on the item and how many of them. You know, in this case, there were 100 of them, so that's actually quite a lot for a promotional. Usually, it's within like a handful of them, or like 50. But this is one where there's one of 2. So
What?
this is the McDonald's All-American Game 2009.
Can you tilt that
There
up?
is a lot
PlayStation
going on here.
3.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you've got the fat PS3.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the fat PS3.
Which is fitting for, you know, a fast food item. But then there's also All-American basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The McDonald's All-American Game is kind of like the All-Star Game for high school basketball.
Okay.
And they gave out 2 systems to the MVPs, the male and the female, and this is one of those systems.
How did you get this?
So this was actually sold. Like you said, some people care about keeping these things, some people don't. And this was, you know, in 2009, one of those winners decided they didn't want to keep it.
And this is like laser engraved on the top here?
Yeah, I think it's painted, and then there's a bunch of layers of clear
Gotcha.
coat on top, so that are printed on there. So
Yeah, that's
you know,
incredible.
Really cool
just
artifact.
The juxtaposition of all of these things is really funny to me because it's like a bunch of things that make you sedentary and a bunch of things that make you exercise.
Right. All right. So next thing,
You're like building a fort around.
we are.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow, yeah.
So we had first the bedazzled NYC Peach Nintendo DS.
Can we get like a really close shot of this? This thing is just gorgeous.
Yeah. So this was sold in the Nintendo World Store in New York. And they made 10 of them. Each has its own unique design.
10?
So 10, right.
So these were custom bedazzled?
Custom bedazzled for Nintendo. So they actually sold these for $500 a piece.
Oh my God.
In the
Custom button
NWC
here.
store, yeah.
NYC
So
Peach. This is interesting because Nintendo is known for being so like kind of specific about staying on brand.
Yeah.
This doesn't look like an official Nintendo
no,
item at all.
it doesn't. And that's, I think, the strangest thing. There's a couple that kind of fit into this weird like Nintendo custom world, licensed by Nintendo themselves. And then there's this one, which is the 50-cent G-Unit
No.
custom DS. So
Oh my God, that's awesome.
he commissioned 50 of these.
Really?
Fitting.
For G-Unit. And
I didn't realize there were 50 members in GU.
well, you know, there's hangers on,
Yep.
right? Some of the entourage.
Weed barriers.
Yeah,
So fun.
yeah, exactly. The guy with the backpack
Yep.
gets one as well. And this was, you know, there's one of 50 of these, and it's one of those really cool. You know, how are people giving gifts to their friends using
Yeah.
video games, right? This is like, go ahead.
I love the idea of like 50 Cent and his entourage playing like Field of Magic and Sprung.
Right.
And,
Yeah. No, I've always felt that like 50 Cent is
Brainy.
definitely like a
Ping pals.
very high level teenager.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
he's like, oh, my grandma's making me take out the trash. I just want to play my DS.
This
Right.
is actually a great. This is a great DS to play anywhere because no one can see you.
Right,
play.
yeah.
That's
See,
probably why they
your
made
hands
50
are just
of them,
floating in
'cause
midair.
I imagine they would get lost on the many G-Unit woodland hikes. they
Okay,
take.
so
Yes.
who did you have to fight a GU-Unit?
No,
to
this
get
was
that? Like,
once again, you know, someone who was gifted
Yep.
or re-gifted the system, and then it was sold to that person.
yeah,
you
one
know,
of the
and then
you
to
know
me.
hard times for the GU-Unit members.
All right, so now the last thing is the thing. When I first heard about it, I said, the Indiana Jones line, this belongs in a museum. All right, and it does belong in a museum, and it is
so
actually
great.
going to a museum.
Oh my
This
God!
is the very first production TurboGrafx 16.
What?
So literally the first one off the line, and you know, encased it in this little case here, and then was on display at the NEC headquarters in
that's
Chicago
so cool.
when they were working on the TurboGrafx.
oh my God!
So
That's a special spot because you get the contest stuff and then you get the kind of corporate vanity items.
Right.
Yeah.
Where they're like, this is for the front of our building.
Yep.
And then they're like, maybe you know.
well, you know, at the end of the days of the TurboGrafx and Turbo Technology, they were really kind of running on fumes.
Right.
And it was like, this has been a failure, and well, you know, people just wanted to kind of separate themselves from it.
Yeah.
And that's how this gets out into the public. It's like, we're shutting down the office. Does anybody want that TurboGrafx? And yes, of course we do.
Yeah, that's so cool because I mean I think it's like people have fond memories of the TurboGrafx. Not a ton of people have fond memories. There's not a ton of fond memories to have.
Right.
But it had some cool games that I think a lot of people really remember.
Is it the serial or the
Yeah,
production number
97 00001 HA.
Wow.
Yeah, so you know, this is one of those pieces where it does no good sitting in my house or storage or something.
Right.
Like I want this to be in somebody's collection, like some museum's collection, to really tell the story of the console generations, right? Like how everything evolved.
I mean, the idea of it being like the first console
Yes.
made for the TurboGrafx 16 line is incredible because it makes me think like that's right. There's a first console
of every system.
Of every system.
Yeah, and
where
where
are
is
they?
it?
Who
Yeah.
has them?
No,
like that feels like
yeah.
an awesome movie, right? Like hunting that stuff down.
And you know, that one of the reasons we're scanning thousands of pages of documents to, if someone wants to track that down, here are a bunch of names, here are a bunch of events, here's your people you can try to find, and really give everyone the tools to really do the research that we don't have time to do right now.
I want someone to make like a third-person video game about hunting down secret video game stuff like this.
Okay.
They have that at Section MMO. It's called eBay.
Right. Yeah.
Like Uncharted where he has to go to
And
like
the thing is, it has all these microtransactions.
Yep,
right? This eBay game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so like, what's one of your tips for that then? Like, I mean, obviously, like that's obviously a great resource. It's where you find stuff like this. Do you sort of play like coy? Are you kind of like I don't really know what I'm? Or are
Well,
you like?
a lot of times I'm very public about what we're trying to do, and so the preservation angle does help a lot. You know,
Sure.
this is not something where I'm trying to resell or anything. Like I've said for a long time, my collection is being donated to museums. So. That helps, and then I think the other thing is really having saved searches for odd terms, right? Or if you hear about something that like in the news or whatever, you know, we'll talk about some of that on Monday during the Save Point live stream. Is really how some of these things were discovered, right? This was someone who was there for closing down the office, and then coming to them, and then some of this other stuff, you know, sold by someone who didn't want it, and being known as someone who collects is a really good way of getting people to get in touch with you, so outbound in.
That's phenomenal.
Now, Steve, you also brought along some kind of weirder things. I don't actually know what you got here.
Yeah.
Some Nintendo stuff.
Some
right?
odd
Yeah.
Nintendo items.
Yes.
Nintendo is, I mean, it's easy to think of them as like, an 80s kid's childhood with the NES and the Game Boy, but they go back, like 100 years before that or
20
something?
years. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they go to the Meiji era. They were making Hanafuda cards. Like, they've got a lot of
love
weird...
testers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you have that you can
Okay.
show off?
Oh, I didn't realize we're doing that right now. All right.
Yeah, we'll just do it now. So I think it's
on the
important to
spot.
sort of talk about how obviously a week from now there's going to be a brand new Nintendo system out, and they've had a lot of weird design decisions over the years. I mean, even a couple years ago there was that one. It was that sort of like health tester that they were showing off at E3. Remember?
Yeah,
You put your finger in it and like it could read your blood.
Yes.
Or something like that.
The Nintendo Blood Reader. Rated T for animated blood.
Yeah, this is so cool. I'm a big fan of stuff like this. So
Okay. Well, let's start off with the most recent.
Yeah.
And we're talking now, really a lot of these like odd items, promo items.
Wow.
A lot of people probably know what this is. At least I think so.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is a funny item.
Because you guys have one.
Yeah, so a couple years ago they remade DuckTales, the classic NES game. This was done by WayForward, and part of the whole appeal of that was that they really leaned into the era that DuckTales came from.
Yes.
So they made a lunchbox,
Right.
Which we all had
Careful,
as kids.
there's a lot of shredded money in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
And inside this lunchbox is one of the coolest items I think I've ever seen.
yeah, so you can just pull it out
Yeah,
there.
it's a-
It's a gold DuckTales cartridge.
Yeah, so they made a gold DuckTales cartridge with a little manual and a poster and everything like that. This is an original NES cart, which doesn't actually... I think we might have tested it in the office.
It
at
is
some point.
DuckTales, but the odd thing is it's not using original NES boards. It's IM 8-bit. They commission them and they use Time Walk Games PCBs inside.
Yeah.
So it's one of those odd, like, wow, they went through a lot of work
Yeah.
to get these things done, and we're just throwing shredded
Throwing
money
money around.
everywhere.
Yeah, so they put Uncle Scrooge's shredded money in here.
Yeah.
It's
Number
his favorite thing to
129.
do.
Yeah,
out of
a lot of
150.
150.
Now, here's where I just am kicking myself. Brian, you have another one on your desk.
I do have one on my desk, which it's just been I was a big fan of this game when it came out.
Yeah.
Big fan of the original DuckTales, and I got this and I just kind of put it on my desk and put it aside, and I was like, this is a really cool collectible.
Yeah, and you
thing.
got it because you went to like a DuckTales preview event or something that Capcom
yeah,
was
I
throwing,
believe so.
something like that.
Yeah.
It's swag. I got one too, and I gave it to our dear friend Ryan Scott. And then you told me that this thing eBays for like what, $2,000?
It has been up to $2,000. The most recent sale is $1,300.
So I had one, and now I do not have one. So that's cool.
That's
So
cool.
see, the thing is, I have one, but I can't bring myself to like put that on eBay because it's just like I know it's one of those things that I'll be thinking about for a very long time.
Yeah. Like how,
you know?
I mean, it is such a cool promo, and
Yeah.
it really shows how much they cared about what Capcom cares about, what they were doing with DuckTales Remastered, whether or not the game was amazing or not.
Now,
This is the greatest promo.
Did it come with a copy of the game, or did they just send like a digital code?
No, it did come with some people got a disc, some people didn't. There's also a variation of this that's PAL. And there's fewer of those, so those really don't go for sales. It's something to look for.
We have an
Yeah.
ad for the
Quack.
soundtrack here, which has Two Quack, Snoop Ducky Duck, Huey, Dewey, Louie in the News, Michael Quacks, and they got some jokes.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
jokes. The green cheese
Now,
coupons in there.
Stephen,
as
we
well.
love video games, but what if we know somebody that is playing just way too much of them?
You want to stop them from playing video games. And normally a parent would take away the controller or the power supply.
Seems
but
like the easy method.
Just
Yeah.
have kids who listen.
Right. But in the 80s, someone decided to release this, the Homework First video game lock.
Are you kidding me?
By Master Lock.
No, it's not. They use all the
Oh.
terminology and saying like there's all these trademarks. So you're thinking it's a Master Lock product, but no, they just put the names on
So
there.
this was a big actual physical lock you can put in front of the car. This
that's
is a
ridiculous,
chastity
yeah.
belt for your NES.
Pretty much.
It
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It is. Yeah. It like locks into the front hole and then like make sure you can't put in a cartridge.
Locks into the front hole.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Oh
This
my
is-
God.
So was this a precursor to those cable locks you thread
Yeah,
through?
'cause I had a friend
Yeah,
that
yeah,
had one of
very
those.
much. It's
Yeah,
very much
it's
like
fascinating,
that.
yeah.
And so someone was like, "We need to make money off this Nintendo thing. How can we do that? We don't make games. Well, we make locks, and like, why not?"
And so you would have parents, and they'd carry a key for this, or they
No,
would.
it's combination lock. Yeah. So you actually set the combo, and then
Did they have like a sort of contingency plan for if you forgot the combination? Like, how do you get this thing off? Like
well,
a
you
laser?
break off the top of the door, probably.
Oh my
This thing was
God.
$20. In what time period is that? Like an original sticker? Or was
Yeah,
this
that's
like
the original sticker. So
That's a really overpriced lock.
Yeah.
that's
That's
an
very
expensive
expensive.
lock in like 1986.
So was
right?
did this go to market? Was this a prototype?
No, this is to market, and
Okay.
so one of the reasons this one's kind of
don't
more
put price tags on
valuable
prototypes, Brian.
is
Yeah,
it's still attached to the card, right?
Yeah.
Just like an action figure, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No, it's not, because action figures are actually fun. This is actively preventing fun.
Okay, so now we're getting to artifacts, weird things in Nintendo history. These are really delicate, so we're gonna be a little careful with them. But I'm gonna hand that one off to you.
Okay.
Unpack the other. These are the clay
I already-
figures.
already broke it, so
yeah,
there
it's
you go.
okay. No, it's his hand comes off. The clay figures used in the Nintendo Power Shoot. I think this is November, December 1989.
The cover shoot.
That for Tetris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it's a little Howard,
So-
and a little Nestor.
Oh, that's
If
so
you,
cool.
If you grew up with video game magazines like I did, you probably remember that Nintendo Power did a lot of clay covers. Their first issue and their last issue specifically about Super Mario Brothers 2 and then Super Mario Brothers for Wii U featured clay Marios running away from either Toad or Bowser. This
This is Howard and Nestor as Tetris pieces.
that's incredible.
And they came from Howard Phillips, the Game Master's personal collection.
Oh my God.
And once again, these belong in a museum. It's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
weird artifact to own.
That's so cool.
But yeah.
I'm so glad these weren't tossed because it seems like for something like that, they'd get thrown away, right? Like, I
Yes.
mean, nobody. Do you think someone has like the clay burger that was featured in the first Big Mac advertisement, right? I think like video gamers and Nintendo fans in general, they hold on to stuff anymore. Now, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where lies the Super Mario Brothers?
No, that is very likely saved.
Okay.
Because from what we've heard, Nintendo, surprisingly enough, does have a pretty good sense of their own history. Like,
Right.
as much as we think they forget it, they do have a humongous archive. These got off because they were Howard's, right? It's
Yeah.
like, hey, you were on this. But some of the bigger things we've heard, they've actually saved in the vault.
I love
So,
that they gave him his little bow tie too.
Yep.
These are so cool.
All right, so you mentioned the Love Tester. So
Yes.
we are going now back in time.
Oh, so you have
to
one.
the Nintendo Love
Yeah.
Tester.
This
Children,
packaging-
if you're under the age of 18, you might want to look away because this
Please
is about
put-
to get a little bit steamy.
Please have your parents place the homework lock on this show.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a sexy box. Look
Yeah.
at that.
Well,
For
so-
young ladies and men.
Yeah, so this one, the Love
Weird
Tester,
combo.
was oddly enough one of the first electronic Nintendo products. So most of the time it was more physical, mechanical. And it has the Nintendo games
I love how
logo.
everyone's like, yeah, Nintendo's a family company. It's like, yeah, well, where do you think those families came from? Mom
Right.
and Dad met at the bar. They were
Yeah.
having a little key party.
They were playing the Love Tester. So this one was
Also-
released in the U.S. because the The manual is in English.
Ooh, this is probably one of the least sexy things I've ever seen.
I don't know. It kind of looks like the female reproductive
It's an
system.
icebreaker. So
Yeah.
how you're supposed to use it, and this is designed by Gunpei Yokoi, the guy who designed the Game Boy.
Who designed the D-pad and Metroid and
What
Kid
you do
Icarus?
is you bring this to like a bar or you're out with people and like, oh, let's test each other. So one person holds one end, the other person holds the other
Do you
end.
want to see how we
And then
get
you
along?
hold hands to see what your compatibility
That's
is like.
incredible. Could you
So
imagine?
You two hold hands.
Like, how weird is
We're
that?
not moving the needle here. So one of the hints they say is, sometimes if you kiss, you'll get a better reading.
we move the
So
needle?
I'm not
you didn't
kissing.
move the needle, so a little bit.
So, like, pickup lines are skeevy, but
Yeah.
imagine pulling this thing out at a bar.
Yeah.
Excuse me, miss. I'd like to use this Nintendo device to determine whether or not we should procreate. Would you like to follow through with this? I like it's got a little carrying case and everything.
Yeah, so you can
like
bring it
this is
everywhere.
leatherette carrying case.
This is so creepy because this feels like a Victorian piece of medical technology,
Yes.
but it's got like 70s board game fonts on it.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Now, how did you get this thing?
So this is something I just picked up as a regular collector.
Yeah, I
kinda wanna get one.
Yeah, the old Nintendo toys. They actually re-released them, I think, in 2010.
Really?
It looks almost exactly the same down to the box. So that's really cool. Yep. Yeah. So
Look at that thing.
Test your love.
It looks like a prop from Ghostbusters.
It looks like a flux capacitor.
There's a lot of stuff.
Or ovaries.
Right. You know, there is kind of a reproductive angle
Yeah.
to there.
See that right there? That's where you came from,
Yeah,
Billy.
and so you can see like how much does the needle move, right? Have your parents test you with your friends,
Wow.
and maybe you have your crush and
Yeah.
introduce the love tester.
Maybe
so.
you get a restraining order placed on you.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, I do like how the side says love tester for young ladies and men.
Yeah, again, that's just a weird combination of elements there.
Right.
Oh, apparently these things are called the terminal knobs.
Yes, and also marketed as a lie tester as
Okay.
well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the last thing we have is actually the toy. I can close that up. Is what really got Gunpei Yokoi discovered by Nintendo. He was a maintenance guy in the stockroom, and he had a bunch of parts that he was just kind of messing around with. Yamauchi saw that and was like, "You should make that into a toy," and so they did. This is the 1967 Nintendo Ultra Hand.
The Ultra Hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this thing because, like you said before, Nintendo has a physical archive of some of the things they saved, but the Ultra Hand has actually made its way into a couple of Nintendo video games
Yes,
as well.
yeah.
WarioWare specifically for
Right.
the Game Boy Advance had an Ultra Hand mini game in it.
Yep.
It's actually popped up in quite a few things. I believe there might have been a Smash Brothers trophy at one point.
I love
too.
every single bit of just graphic design on this box.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this weird ass family. Look at these guys. Like, what are they up to?
So now
The
this,
kids stealing stuff off the shelves, and the girls giving the dad an orange.
this looks incredibly delicate. Now this is basically a giant extending arm that senior citizens can use to reach things on high shelves.
Well, it's for kids, right? So what you do is you squeeze the ends and it extends out. And so you can see like these are made of rubber, which is now over
wearing.
40 or 50 years old, right?
Yeah.
And so
Can I
sure.
give it a shot?
And then
Wow.
yeah, so extend it out, and then it's when you pull the string is what closes the
Oh
things
man.
at the end.
He's
So-
like a glorified pooper scooper.
Yeah, you could use it as that, but it's
Yeah.
a fun. So this is, like I said, Yokoi had this as just parts that he was using inside the shop, and he was just kind of extending it. And so when he got called into Yamauchi's office, he thought he was being fired for goofing off.
Right. Oh.
Whereas they released this as a toy, and this really helped propel Nintendo into the toy market. Right? It's
Yeah.
sold over 1 million units, and was also released in the United States.
This sold over 1 million units.
It sold over 1 million units during that holiday season in
Oh
67.
my God!
So,
I mean, this was pre Tickle Me Elmo, Teddy
yeah,
Ruxpin,
right. Like the hot thing
Pokemon
is
Go.
it's a plastic Ultra Hand.
Yeah.
There were only about 2 million people living in America back then, so that
They
was
all
a
needed one.
Game of the year.
Everybody, totally game of the year.
man.
But once again, this is early parts of Nintendo's history.
Yeah.
Really how they went from toys and then toys moving on to video games, and really seminal part. I mean, Gunpei Yokoi went on to design obviously things like the Love Tester,
Yeah.
Game & Watch, Game Boy, and Virtual Boy, and then worked on things like the Wonder Swan. So. Huge influence on the industry, and it wouldn't have happened if he had not just started messing around with stuff in the shop.
There's something incredibly surreal about this little, the little, dongle here that just says Nintendo on it, but it's not in the Nintendo font that we know and love.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the kind of earlier one. It's just a.
You'll see that also
at
the logo on the boxes of the Love Tester, and this is NG, which is Nintendo Games, because it was a separate division, right? They were known for Hanafuda cards and things like that, and it's
Yeah.
also Nintendo here.
Man, it's just
on the
it
plastic.
feels so cheap.
Right.
Because it's old. And like plastics come a long way.
Right.
Like, now they're making Amiibo and stuff, and we're like, these are gorgeous. Look at the paint on this, Octorok or whatever. And
I mean,
it's like,
again, like on the precipice of a brand new Nintendo console, which is just as toy-like and joyous and goofy and weird as everything they've ever made. I think it's so awesome to just sort of see the path from where they came, because they have always been making strange, bizarre things that sort of go diagonal from what the rest of the market is doing, and I cherish the fact that we still get to see them do that today.
Yeah, and that's the reason we're trying to save all of this, right? I want people to be able to, like you did, just like extend out an offer hand, right?
Now, Steve, we've spent already like half the show talking about this stuff because it's very exciting. Can you come back soon to IGN and talk more about these sort of things?
I might be able to do that.
Tell us when.
How about Monday at noon?
All right, that sounds
good.
awesome. So we're going to do a live stream Monday at noon.
Yes.
Playing some of the classic and weird and strange gems and hidden video games and canceled video games. And are we allowed to talk about any of the cool stuff we're playing?
I don't think we're going to talk too much about that, but we had a lot of great guests, like amazing guests, and obviously everyone you know here.
We've got a bunch of friends from all around the industry. We're going to play a bunch of video games you probably never heard of before or never seen played before. And Steve's going to be there. Frank Cifaldi's going to be there. Another wonderful person, part of your video game history organization.
Yes.
And I look forward to this because we're going to get to work together and play a bunch of video games that are really weird and really cool.
Yeah.
Steve, where can people find out more about what you're doing and who you are? And I don't know if they want to like track you down and steal
steal
your
my
thing.
stuff.
Love test with you.
Fortunately, it's going to a museum real soon. So gamehistory.org is where we have a lot of our information. You can sign up for the newsletter, which will be releasing kind of everything on Monday, along with the live stream. So that's kind of our big launch. And then Game History Org on Twitter. I'm Stephen P. Lynn on Twitter, and then Frank Cifaldi is Frank Cifaldi.
Awesome.
Cifaldi.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you,
we'll
Steven.
See you back here on Monday.
Yeah.
Right now we have a game that says words that we are not allowed to say.
Yep.
If you don't like the cuss words, avert your ears. This is Tormentor X Punisher. Let's take a look. Cool.
Hey everybody, Max and Brian here. We are playing a game called Tormentor X Punisher, which is a very weird game. In a nutshell, it's Smash TV meets Doom meets Hotline Miami.
Yeah, it's aggressively violent and bloody and gory and loud.
It's
and acerbic.
I feel like this game is what Skrillex was drawing on his binder in 6th grade.
All right, so this is my first time playing this. Oh.
Yeah, so I'm playing with a mouse and keyboard, which is hard. Basically,
oh my God.
The way it works is it shouts swears at you. You use a machine gun, and then when you run out of bullets, you shoot a shotgun to reload, in spite of the fact that makes no sense. And it's all leaderboard based. Oh boy. Yeah, and then there's monsters. That's really about it. I mean, I think it's still a work in progress. This is a weird little indie game published by called Wrong Fury Games, which is kind of following the footsteps of companies like Devolver and Midnight City. Rest in peace.
Man. 69.
Tiny build. But yeah, basically it's a weird ass indie game that is filled with satanic imagery. I should probably have a mouse pad. But you died. Yeah, the mud smell. Yeah, so
who's that little man that screams at me every time?
It's catchy. Oh my lord. Yeah. I just love
So, little history about me. Smash TV and Robotron are like two of my favorite classic games of all time.
Really?
So I really appreciate something like this, because this is, it's kind of Doomish, kind of Hotline Miami-ish, but it's also just definitely its own completely demonic thing.
Yeah, I like the excessive amount of upside-down pentagrams that give you points.
Yeah.
Just it's just shouting words like demon and death.
I feel like this game is like the most diametrically opposite game to something like Kirby's Air Ride.
Yeah. Also, every shot opens with just like a big old goat scene.
Yeah.
Good lord.
It's good. It's been
I feel like this game is turning me into my own mother, being like, good heavens, why is this a thing? Yeah, but I mean, this is...
this is the kind of game that like Tipper Gore fought against.
Yeah. Because it has the F word in it.
A lot of them.
Yeah, that's CTZ right there. That's who we're going to be interviewing in a
So
second.
obviously it's like leaderboard based, score attack.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very like unabashedly classic arcade game.
Yeah, and we're playing on Steam right now. I imagine it's going to be because it is, stick like consoles too. I'm pretty sure they're going to be like adding extra gun features and whatnot. So we're looking at a pretty early build, but it's like it plays pretty well right now. We just shouted Doom. That's weird. What other games have like people shouting the names of other video games?
When you beat The Last of Us, Joel yells Super Mario Brothers.
Anyway, the Unspoken Corsic. You want to do one more round?
Yeah,
Keep
let's do that.
going?
I want to see what other gross things get screamed at
I
you.
love that you're just gonna die. You're my meat shield.
Yeah, we don't even have an option to not die. Dude, when he got killed, he exploded in like 2 ways.
Why didn't you say Wally? What? All right, so the malevolent death mom.
That's like Cornholio yells at you.
Yeah.
I need TP for my bunghole.
This game definitely speaks to me on a very primordial teenage level.
Dirt bird.
Yeah, so let's get some questions answered, like who made this and why?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm scared, and I want to try more.
And we're back. So that's Tormentor X Punisher. We're joined by Hamza Aziz, my good pal from Raw Fury Games. You guys are like an indie publisher?
Yeah, we are. We started in 2015. We're indie or micro publisher, whatever you want to call it. And basically, we find really cool, awesome games and help them get out there.
Okay. Like, where the hell did Tormentor X Punisher come from?
So, Tormentor X Punisher, it's developed by 3 guys. Eunice Turner is kind of the lead on this. He's worked on Downwell, Broforce, Nuclear Throne, and a bunch of other indie games.
That totally checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
And then we have Boblith, who's worked on Samurai Gun and Hyperlight Drifter. And then rounding out the team is a guy named Tuka, and this is actually his first commercial game project.
Oh wow, okay.
So the 3 of them got together and created Tormentor X Punisher, this super over-the-top, tongue-in-cheek, kind of like homage to the 80s and 90s arcade scene where you would go into an arcade, everything's super loud, super bright,
Yeah.
and in your face.
And there's a 13-year-old saying the F word at you, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
This game is full of cursing, full of blood, guts, everything.
I like that because that's a lot of the sort of stuff I immediately picked up on is that this is a screamy, loud arcade cabinet that I probably would have felt like I was breaking the law to play when I was, at a birthday party.
I mean,
in
it's
third
just
grade.
kind of Doom and Smash TV smashed together, really.
Pretty much, yeah.
I love that one of the guys in there just shouts Doom. So what we played a bit of this. We got some okay scores, I guess, but there's a lot else in there, right?
Yeah, so I was watching you guys playing through. Good job.
Thanks.
You did all right. But that's kind of the philosophy behind the game. We're not going to hold your hand. We're just going to throw you in there, and you're going to die a lot, and it's intentional, right?
Yeah.
Every time you die, you're going to learn a lesson from that. You're going to improve your strategy, and eventually you're going to get into a rhythm. And I find myself when I play this game, I've dropped 30 hours into this game so far as I've been testing it. I don't have to, right? Sure, I'm biased as a publisher.
Yeah, they're paying you,
But I love this game, right? Because it's just super fun, and it does this thing where when you get really into the game, you kind of stop thinking about your real life situations where you have stress or work or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You play it, it's very cathartic, you forget about everything, get a few rounds in, and you're good, you're satisfied. You get on the leaderboard, you kill a bunch of demons, and kind of leave
I like how
feeling good.
you said you can leave your stress behind for this game. This is an immensely stressful game.
It looks stressful.
This is a fun, loud, screaming experience. I had a really good time playing it,
Yeah.
but to call it cathartic is it makes me worry about you.
Yeah.
There's probably something wrong with me a little bit. I do love,
No, it's definitely got some some Hotline Miami DNA in there, and I love that it's got that quick turnaround of getting you back in there in the game.
Yeah.
I'm guessing is this out yet, or is this kind of early access? Or?
We're coming out within the next couple months. So it's
Okay.
just right around the corner. We're just putting the final touches
So
on it.
what else is in there? Are there bosses? We didn't get to any bosses.
Yeah,
This sucked,
so
but-
every time you restart the game, it's always going to be starting from scratch, right? The environment's just barren. But as you're progressing through it, you're going to start filling it with all the corpses of the demons. They never disappear. But at the same time, too, there'll be bosses that come through. Everything is randomized, including the bosses. So, one of the bosses is called Carrion. He'll come into the environment, slam into the ground, and create walls around the area, right? And it's both helpful and also kind of hurts you at the same time.
Right.
So you're seeing walls drop in and kind of creates this maze-like effect. So after a while, you'll get to a point where you can kind of like take these bosses out very fast, but as you're learning, it's going to be very hard.
Sure. And I'm sorry, but did you say the corpses of the demons never go away?
Yeah, so eventually, like, I have filled the environment with nothing but blood.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good, yeah. So it's a video
blood
game.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds about right.
So, how do you get a game like this attention in a universe now where there's like, I mean, Horizon came out next week, Zelda's next week. I mean, there's Max is playing Yakuza. I just finished Resident Evil 7. How do you get a game like this in the conversation with all these other big things?
So that's kind of the tricky situation when it comes to games nowadays. Like Steam Spy released a statistic saying that 38% of the games that have come out for Steam, 38% of that was released last year, right? So there's a flood of games now, and you don't, like, I'm going to straight up say, like, you don't need a publisher, right? As a developer,
Right.
if you ever encounter a publisher and like you need us to succeed, walk out of that meeting, right?
Well, it's like how a musician doesn't necessarily need a record label anymore and a bunch of other things, but there are benefits to having someone who sort of has your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys made some kind of noise on Reddit the other day because Steam basically shut down Greenlight. And you guys were like, hey, if you're working on a game and you need help getting past whatever the current setup is, we'll help you out. How the hell does that benefit you guys?
So, I mean, our philosophy at Raw Fury is that the people on the team, we're kind of industry veterans. Like, between the entirety of all of us, we have like 70 years of experience in the biz. And we've kind of just gotten sick of the way publishing has been done, right? It's very more in favor of the publishers rather than developers, and we want to change that. We want to support developers. We want to support awesome games getting out there. And one of the ways we want to do that is, like, we saw what's happening with Greenlight.
Right.
If it's on the low end, right, they're going to charge a fee for developers to get on Steam, right? On the low end, it's going to be $100. On the high end, $5,000. If it's the low end, awesome. We don't really need to do anything. But $5,000, if it gets to that point, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean that's most. I mean, if there are people who are making games in their spare time, that's impossible. You know?
Yeah.
Do you think it's like helpful or hurtful that now the release of a game is sort of, especially on PC or Steam, is muddled by the fact that there is Greenlight and there is early access, and then there is beta and alpha builds, and then there's a launch, and then it comes to consoles, and then maybe a year later it's on iOS.
Yeah.
Like, is that sort of a harder moving target at this point?
I think in general, yeah, because there's so many games just being flooded onto the market, and I can see what Valve is trying to accomplish, but at the same time, it's going to hinder some really great games that could be potentially made. And with us, we just want to help cool games get out there.
Yeah.
And for this initiative with Steam Direct, we've pledged that we will help support developers that need it. But sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine.
We're going to support these devs.
A lot of things are dying on screen right now. I can see how that could be very distracting.
Sorry, what were you saying? Something?
But like, we're not going to have any stake in the games we help through this initiative, right? We're not going to ask for a revenue cut. We're not going to ask for profits or any involvement into the game. We just want to help them get out there.
So how do you make money?
In this case, we don't.
So you're like a cool friend?
I mean, in a way, yeah. Like, the only thing we ask back from if we have to go through with this, if Valve goes through with this, is that we would like the money back that we give them.
Oh, so you're like an Italian uncle.
Okay, there you go.
But the only thing we're going to do with that money, if it becomes profitable for them and everything, is just give it to someone else that will actually need it, so we can kind of keep this flow going.
That's really awesome and very admirable.
That's cool.
And especially because you get to help make beautiful art, like this game where I think he just fought a turd snake.
Yeah, so that's one of the bosses. That is the priestess. She shoots out these like electrical blasts.
Yep.
Yeah. And then this kind of shows off at this point, like the high level gameplay.
Yeah, this looks like 8 cups of coffee.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, do you guys have any plans to bring this stuff closer to consoles? I know the IGN audience plays a ton of PC games, but we also have a massive audience that loves console games.
So, for the most part, our kind of like strategy or theme or whatever have you is that we release on PC first, and we kind of get a flow of how the game will be received by the audience.
You also, you build up a little bit of hype.
We build up the hype,
because
and
there's going to be YouTubers and Twitch streamers who are just playing whatever the latest thing on Steam is.
Exactly, and with like releasing on Steam too, or PC in general, it's we can update the game a lot easier compared to straight going to console. And based on the reception, we'll take that and take it to another platform. So Kingdom, our very first game, did really well. We then released it on Xbox One, and we have the iOS and Android version coming out like very soon here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we've got the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco is next week, and you're going to be, I imagine, out there passing out business cards. So if people are trying to get a game out there, maybe look for this guy.
Yeah, we're gonna actually have a loft during the entire week. We're gonna be showing off games, our upcoming projects. We're gonna have meetings with developers who are looking for publishers. And we have a lot of announcements actually for GDC. We're going to be announcing 2 new projects, some new platforms we're going to be on. And we've already talked about how we're going to have Kingdom and Goner on the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Killer.
So we'll have more on that pretty
What about
soon.
this Terminator Punisher game? How do you think the House of Mario is going to feel about that blood wreck?
We have talked to them, and
They let Binding of Isaac on there, so I think they're loosening the white gloved grips a little bit.
yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I think this would have a good fit on that controller for the
totally
Switch.
agree. Families all around the world can enjoy.
Looks like a good family game. You
Yeah.
know, for Satan worshippers. Anyway, Hamza, thank you so much for joining us. Raw Fury Games, check them out. And Tormentor X Punisher, do you have like a kind of ballpark when that's out in the wild?
Within the next 2 to 3 months.
Beautiful.
It's just
There you
right
go.
around the corner.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird indie games, here's another one. Let's take a look.
It's got way less blood.
Maybe.
Hey everyone, it's Brian and Max from Up at Noon, and today we're playing A Pixel Story. It's on PS4 right now. It's been on Steam for a minute, but it's pretty rad. It's sort of like pixelated Metroidvania. It's sort of got some Fez elements going on here.
Yeah, it's kind of an homage to just video games. Like you start out, I believe you play as like a pong ball, and then you come to life, and then you have to go and investigate this world. And
I really
I think as you get towards like the later levels, it becomes like low poly, like 3D.
I really like video games like this. They remind me of the olden years, the good old days, like waking up on a Saturday morning, eating a whole bunch of cold-ass pizza Lunchables, waiting for Dad to come back from the liquor store.
Talking to a crab with a beard.
My dad never went to the liquor store. That's my dad.
Yeah.
I was trying to like turn this into a whole saga.
Yeah, waking up in a basement, nothing to do but play Kid Chameleon.
When Mom couldn't get money for shots, you know what it was time for? Sega Genesis.
Spectre Man. They say that measles are a cool spot, but the real cool spot is the Cool Spot Adventure, brought to you by 7-Up. I like how people are like, oh, there's paid DLC based on a product placement. It's like, we grew up playing video games about, like, Chester Cheetah and stuff. Wow.
Oh,
There's a fart. Oh, that wasn't good.
it's okay. I thought those were spikes. It's just grass.
What's that noise?
I have such fond memories of the olden days.
Yeah.
You know, like when the Repo Man came to take our home.
Emilio Estevez in the flesh. Oh,
Oh, great. You got to move in the air.
thanks. Sorry, I did it the wrong. I'm it's too early for this. All right, there we go.
That was odd. That was just an odd thing they made you do.
A little fart.
Oh.
Yeah, it's still the tutorial. Bat.
Boing.
Oh!
Oh! What?
I'm a dead man.
That was unfortunate. There we go. What do you think was up with those beer barrels over there?
No one knows.
Who's this man?
Oh, he's a drunk robot.
Okay.
I think he's been drinking lots of wine. Yeah, he's just malt program. I feel like that's a developer joke I don't get. Oh, stop it. Come on. There we go.
There we are. Okay.
Is that a key?
I don't know what that is. Look at that gem.
How do I get the gem?
Trying to get that gem? Not happening.
Whatever. I'll live.
Those are spikes.
Yeah, thanks. That helps. Yeah, so it's I mean, we're pretty early on here. It definitely gets more Metroidvania, but
Yeah.
right now it's just kind of teaching us how to play the game. What do you want?
I like platformers like this. I feel like a lot of these just get made for iPhones now, and they're terrible to play on there.
Yeah, you need some buttons.
Yeah, I still buy them all the time though, because I'm a big sucker.
Yeah.
So I don't understand money. It's ever since the Repo Man came.
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
How do I get over there? What am I
That's a
doing?
cute tree.
Yeah?
Just go right.
Okay.
See what's going on with these dudes.
Ooh, wheels.
Oh, I would not go down there for that coin. I'm just gonna skip that.
Okay. So we don't have to do that. Ooh, a secret treasure. Ooh, big balls.
The butt blaster.
I hate the butt blaster. All right. What? Oh, it's a map. Okay, so I already got those coins. I like it. Whoa. Oh, bad times.
Walked right into that one.
Yeah.
Checkpoints are nice though.
Yeah, no, they're cool about that. Aha! Funky levers.
What's up with that Nintendo Switch back there?
What are you talking about? Plep. Yeah. Anyway, Vector Man. Jungle Strike.
You've done great so far, Max.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a pixel story. It's pretty
Sure
cute.
is.
I like it. Oh, you found a secret!
I think that was a secret that was obvious so that I could learn more.
What is this animal ranch you just found? Hold on a minute.
This is the farm zone.
What are those? Like, okay, that's a pig.
Beep, 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 beep. Kevin the pig rides are surprise. What? This text is too small to read.
Kevin the pig rides? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like Helper from Venture Bros. What?
I'm
Wait,
into that.
girl, guys, I can't read this from lights in my eyes.
Well, this is a pixel story. It's out now. You can play it on consoles and on Steam.
Story about pixels.
Yeah, and you can ride Kevin the pig, hopefully. Eventually. I think that's the
I
quest.
think I'll wait for Kevin the Pig to get his own solo game.
Yep.
Kevin the Pig rides.
Keep waiting.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah. I died.
Excelsior, true believers, and
We're back.
welcome once more. So in case you haven't noticed, Marvel movies come out every 20 minutes at this point. They keep doing them, and they're building more and more towards all sorts of stuff. I saw this video the other day that was basically a bunch of like the higher up producers sort of patting themselves on the back and being like, "Hey, 10 years ago we put out Iron Man, and we were like, we're building towards something. It's called Project Avengers, and then Avengers and Avengers 2 came out, and Civil War." And this has all kind of been going towards Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. Yep. And we've kind of all been like, I feel like the last half of that has just been building towards that one big movie. And I'm thinking like, what happens next?
Right. Yeah, you're right. We've had this long road to get where we are. There's a couple stumbles if you look at multiple Hulks, and
Sure.
Iron Man kind of took some weird directions.
Yeah, but I mean, for the most part, like the MCU has been pretty much on track.
Yeah,
They've
totally.
set the tone of what comic book movies look like in the present day, the
from
future.
from street level to space, basically.
Yeah, and the rest of the year we've got Guardians 2, we've got Spider-Man: Homecoming, and then next May, we've got Avengers 3: Infinity War, which was supposed to be Avengers: Infinity War Part 1, but they've said that's not the case. I don't know what they're calling Part 4, but the fact is they are closing in on the kind of Infinity Gauntlet thing being, getting the door shut on it.
Yeah.
So I started thinking like, what's the next step?
Yeah.
Marvel, the comics have been building off of tons and tons of different kind of, multi-title arcs. So I figured I'd run down like the various events they've done and the odds of those showing up in movie form in some sense. So starting with 1982, Contest of Champions was more or less the first kind of big overlapping thing for all of the Marvel Universe to get involved with. And the premise there was pretty much like a bunch of superheroes had to fight in space or whatever. Which kind of works. It'd be sort of like
Are they fighting or are they posing for picture day?
I think they're getting ready for the pose of Picture Day.
Okay.
Yeah. That's before they started fighting. They
Got it.
they did like a nice kind of like an orientation seminar and everything.
So did they have a sort of shared threat here?
No, I think it was more like the early stuff was pretty much just them being like, you have to fight for some reason. I want to say there were like a bunch of cosmic forces at work here, but basically the Marvel Universe is strength in numbers, and it's strength because it kind of weaves itself together. It really is like a cohesive universe. The part where it really kind of took off and just kind of set the tone for what Marvel events were was Secret Wars, which was kind of like Contest of Champions, but it was a bunch of Marvel heroes basically abducted by this dude called the Beyonder, who was like, you need to fight for my entertainment. And that's actually where Spider-Man got his black costume. So maybe that would be an excuse for them to get all of the movies together and fighting each other, but it's kind of also like a weak premise.
Sure. I mean, given the airport parking lot scene in Civil War, I think I would kill to watch entire movies and stuff like that.
I mean, I think we're going to see stuff like that in Infinity War. But moving on, Atlantis Attacks was a whole thing involving Namor and a snake god, and then basically the ocean attacked the Earth.
It seems kind of like a weird step down to do like Infinity War, the galaxy is at stake, and then meanwhile the fish are mad. So it'd be kind of there are a bunch of characters that they haven't dipped into. And
Namor's a weird one.
Yeah.
No pun intended for dipped into. Yeah. But he's basically like Marvel's Aquaman, but he's effectively just a man with pointy ears and green underwear.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're gonna like translate that.
He can fly for some reason, I think.
Really?
Yeah. He's very strong. He's in love with Reed Richards' wife. He's a kind of a creepy dude.
What?
That's
a power.
He's one of those guys who's very. I think that Marvel. I don't know if they have the rights to him or not because I think he predates the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Like he goes back way to like the very early days of Marvel Comics. Before it was Marvel Comics, it was just like Captain America and Human Torch running around before Fantastic Four existed. So then we get into the kind of weird, confusing stuff of what did they have the rights to?
Sure.
One they did was a good crossover was Acts of Vengeance, which was all of the Marvel villains teaming up and being like, we're sick of having our asses kicked. It is our turn to do the kicking of asses.
Which is an awesome premise for a movie.
Yeah, so they all went on eBay and they bought some Marvel collectibles and they went out in the parking lot and smashed them with their feet.
Yeah, they had that scene from Office Space.
This is one of those ones that works. Like Civil War, the movie, isn't really Civil War the comic because Civil War the comic hinges a lot on what the mutants are doing. Like the X-Men play a huge role in that, but they managed to make it work. They had the name. So Infinity Gauntlet is probably what we're getting in movie form. Infinity War was the one that came after it, but that gets kind of even more weird and off the beaten path. But
yeah, the Gauntlet's really cool too because it's sort of just like there are different key holders of gems all around the galaxy, and putting them all together makes this awesome, like all-powerful glove.
Sure.
That's also like a loot crate oven mitt that'll burn your hand.
Exactly. Yes. Now this is where it gets interesting. Marvel just got Spider-Man back, and Spider-Man's got his own whole set of like overlapping kind of event stuff that happens. Kind of the biggest one, you love this one, Maximum Carnage, which is when you get all the symbiote stuff going on.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this, as you can see in the corner, this issue was part 2 of a 14-issue saga.
Yeah.
So as a kid, collecting all of them to finish the story was really interesting. And the story actually, I believe, took place across a couple different series.
Yeah, that's how they always do this.
Yeah,
You got to jump
really
right.
cool.
It actually sucks to try to read it now unless you buy like a collected edition, and even then you're missing out on stuff.
Right,
You're
right.
Like,
I think I had a
what...
trade paperback.
Yeah.
So I believe Marvel hired a bunch of people that just loved to draw like squiggly lines.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I think that it's going to be odd to see if they do anything with the symbiotes, whether it's Venom or Carnage, under Disney, because they're like, we got Spider-Man back, we're doing Homecoming, he's a teenager. It might be a second before we see like a serial killer who's possessed with a blood alien.
Yeah.
Then again, there's the Clone Saga. I'm curious how they're going to handle basically recasting characters in the MCU, because like the main few like Thor and Iron Man and Hulk to a lesser extent are kind of probably tired of hanging around, so they're going to get new young blood in there. I don't think they're going to want to recast Tom Holland for quite some time. If they have to, doing a Clone Saga would be one way to go about it. Then there's Maximum Security, which is a pretty weird premise. Basically,
weird name.
They're like these aliens are like, hey, Earth, you suck. You're also a jail now. So they turn Earth into space jail, and then the superheroes have to fight people. That's Ronan the Accuser, who we've seen in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
Then there's Avengers Disassembled, which kind of sort of already happened in the movies in Civil War. Basically, in that one, they all get mad, and then it's an excuse to roll in a bunch of new Avengers. So that one, I feel like Avengers Disassembled wouldn't really work as a movie title. Whereas World War Hulk, that's a pretty cool name. Thor Ragnarok is kind of a Hulk movie.
Yeah.
I think they figured out at this point that Hulk movies don't work on their own right now. They might eventually, if they were like World War Hulk, it's everyone versus Hulk because he's here and he's mad. Then there's Secret Invasion, which is really interesting, where they basically find out that everyone is maybe an alien. And so there's this kind of whole like intrigue of like it's actually kind of sort of what they did in Winter Soldier with all the Hail Hydra stuff, where they're like, oh, you're actually a bad guy, we have to fight. It sucks. And then there's Axis, which is probably not going to happen in movie form. Basically, Red Skull, that skeleton Hitler, he goes to Genosha and he gets a hold of Professor Xavier's powers and has a telepathically controlled army, and they all have to fight a bunch of people. What I'm getting at here is, what the hell is the Marvel Cinematic Universe going to do after Thanos? I don't know, and you don't either. No one does. But on May 4th, we get to find out what Thanos is doing in Infinity War. There's that.
That's
Comic
awesome.
books, man. I'm exhausted.
Max, I love your dumb, weird brain.
Yeah, it's got holes in it. Anyway, this is this is Up at Noon.
That was Up at Noon. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week, next Thursday, regular time at noon to hold you over as you count down the hours for the Nintendo Switch to launch. If you're getting one at midnight, man, lucky you. I think ours are getting delivered by Amazon the next day.
Yeah.
We might do like a world's biggest unboxing of all the people that bought the Nintendo Switch here at IGN.
Yeah, if nothing else, next week's episode is going to be very interesting because I think Horizon's out in the wild and
Yeah.
the Nintendo Switch is happening, and also isn't it GDC?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff
so
happening.
there's a lot of crap going down, and we can't say the S word on this show, so I hope you don't have a crappy day. I don't know, that's really not a good way to close the show, is it?
See you next week.
Sayonara.
Snakes.
Hey everyone, it's Brian and Max for Up at Noon, and we're playing Horizon Zero Dawn. Probably my favorite game of the year so far.
Yeah, and
we're
it's
gonna-
only February 20-something.
Yeah, so suck it 2017. You
Yeah,
already
no,
lost.
this honestly is like a fantastic year for games already.
Yeah, it's kinda nuts.
You love this game. This is totally a game for you. I think it's a game for a lot of people, but specifically you. Like, you've been really into hunting in games lately.
Yeah.
And this is a game all about
I want to go
fun
hunting
stuff.
in real life.
So the things I've noticed in patterns of games with you lately, you loved the big boss fights in Bloodborne, and you loved hunting and gathering in like Tomb Raider and Far Cry.
Yeah.
And this combines those. So
Actually, I really like the boss fights in Bloodborne, but I actually just like that world more than anything. The boss fights are very scary, and they cause me a lot of stress and anxiety.